Actually, I am on the head of the T.S.R.ACT company, which is Center for Technology, Science, Research in Art and Culture, T.S.R.ACT. And before, for more than 15 years, I was on the head of International Center for Art and New Media in Prague. Yes, it's about me. And then now I will talk about the project called Mutamorphosis. And you will see, yes. And then, do you see my screen? Okay.
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, first of all, Chernobyl is the theme of this conference, and also is very important moment for climate change perception. I would like to say I read in Forbes in 2019 one article from Danny Di Placido, who was talking about the series of Chernobyl, which was released, and also comparing to very well-known series of George R. Martin, comparing to Game of Thrones. Because in Game of Thrones you have one motive: winter is coming all the time, and Danny Di Placido was talking how real Chernobyl was symbolizing something much more terrible and also invisible to the people, because radioactivity is not visible, and this is this problem was deliberately concealed, and not only for the citizen of in that time Soviet Union, but of all Europe and beyond, and to disregard in favor of maintaining the illusion of control. And we are, since last 2 years, in similar situation, and I would like to make a comparison to the post-COVID era and coronavirus epidemic, which is also invisible, or even more seriously, climate change or climate emergency, that you start to see that, but public opinion very often don't believe in this fact and thinking it's something not so important. But the event like Chernobyl or coronavirus crisis is a tangible problem. Okay, the project Mutamorphosis is funded by T.S.R.ACT company, T.S.R.ACT Center, and in Prague, in collaboration with 6 other countries: Italy, Spain, France, Montenegro, and Estonia. And the main objectives of this project is organizing Mutamorphosis Summit, and for others, more thematic conferences to create the participative place for critical thinking and to investigate new mutation in art, art science and new technology, climate changes and social inclusion, and to discuss new ideas how to transform our world and lifestyle for resilience, climate neutrality and adaptation with the help of the new innovative ideas emerging from hybridization of art, technology and science. First of all, I will explain you a little bit more in detail what all this means, but origin of Mutamorphosis is from Louis, French philosopher who invented this term in 2005, 2006 already, as contraction of two words, Greek words. First, mutalogos, mutation of knowledge, and metamorphosis, changes of the form. As you know, also metamorphosis is very linked to Prague and to beginning of 20th century with the Franz Kafka novel Metamorphosis. The name of the first Mutamorphosis project and conference, it was in 2007, and you can find it on the still web pages mutamorphosiswordpress.com. This conference was accompanied by large exhibition of new media art, electronic concert and other technological art performances organized in that time by CHRNBL, International Center for Art and New Technology in Prague, which I directed in that time, and also with the support of the Institute of Philosophy of the Czech Academy of Science. The second conference, Mutamorphosis, with the tribute to uncertainty, was in 2012 and was attended by more than 100 speakers, artists, scientists, and thinkers, and took place in two parallel locations in National Theatre in Prague and the central building of the Czech Academy of Science in the center of Prague. The Mutamorphosis 2 was dedicated to the future of mutants and mutation in art, science, technology, design, and society. And it was a unique project in its scope and focus in Europe in this year. As you know, Prague has, in the history of Prague, city of Prague, we have quite big magical history of alchemical Rudolphinian Prague. It's 16th, 17th century. And then avant-garde of multicultural environment of pre-war Czechoslovakia. And the introductory concept and lecture of Wiebeck in that time was untitled "We Are All Extremophile," and it was continuation of the tribute to uncertainties prepared by Wiebeck. Who is Wiebeck? Wiebeck was an artist and philosopher and very good friend. Maybe you know philosopher Wilhelm Flusser. He passed away in 2018. It was a very good friend of mine, and we published together his book Zoosystemy. He called himself as zoosystemician, and he in 1972 he founded Institut Scientifique de Recherche Paranaturaliste, which was some kind of Dadaistic institute of science, because he was mixing all the time the science. He's famous that he invented many creatures and not only created these artificial animals, but as you can see on the picture, he described every detail of this animal and animals, and he classified them. He created fictional and chimerical characteristics, and he, in the same time he was like philosopher, and he was thinking about the life in general, and his thesis is that life is undergoing tension, that life is undergoing pressure, and life is undergoing depression and transgression. The biomass is being shaken and destabilized. And the main question he asked in 2012 in this conference: how shall we respond to the urgent questions regarding survival and meaningfulness of the life? And how shall we elaborate new strategies for inventive adaptation in order to persist, faced as we are with the degradation of the condition of life and our environment, which are becoming progressively more toxic and sometimes even deadly. And in his theory, he said that we are all extremophile. It means organisms that, as extremophile, are small organisms. They can survive in extreme environment. And in his theory, people are extremophile because he possessed the memory of the origin of life, and life has invented various strategies in order to leave, for example, the ocean and occupy the ensemble of ecosystems and greatest possible number of ecological niches. It means in his theory, we are changing our environment, which is today very tangible, but with the changes of this environment, we need to adapt to the new environment, what we changed, and something, and many times for worse. It means the symbol of Chernobyl is like catastrophe, visible in short time. Something's happened, which was very dangerous, but you can see it also projected to daytime, that maybe it's not in 2 days or 1 week that we will change our environment, but it can change in few years, maybe 10, 20 years, which is from the perspective of human existence on the earth, is nothing. It's no different in between 1 week and 30 years. Another person very important for the project Mutamorphosis and for mutation is French philosopher Edgar Morin, born in 1921. It means that 8 July he was 100 years old, and he is still very living. He was in television giving interviews and so on. And he said that the planetary crisis born from coronavirus, talking about coronavirus, highlights that the common destiny of all humans is inseparable from bioecological destiny of planet Earth. At the same time, it intensified the crisis of humanity, which is failing to constitute itself into humanity with the big H. Humanism is in crisis in the face of nationalist excesses and withdrawals, racist and xenophobic revivals, the primacy of economic interest over all others. The consciousness of the common destiny of all humans should regenerate it and give its hitherto abstract universalism a concrete character. Everyone will then be able to feel his integration in the adventure of humanity. And if this consciousness spreads in the world and becomes a historical force, then humanism could give rise to the politics of humanity. His position, as you can see, I was reading his statement, is that ecology is not, or climate changes, climate emergencies, and all the ecological problems are not only some scientific climate issues, but it's very political issues. And it's very linked to the future of our countries. Another person who was inspiring project Mutamorphosis is Bruno Latour, very famous also French philosopher, which who is very well known for his work in the field of science and technology studies. And he's actually in Paris in the School of École de Mines de Paris and Sciences Po, and also London School of Economics. He is best known for his book, We Have Never Been Modern, and also, for example, Science in Action. And in his last book published this year in spring, called Où suis-je? Leçon de confinement à l'usage de terrestre, which can be translated as Who I Am. Lessons of lockdowns for use of Earthlink. Latour examines the question about the explanation of the space we were forced into during repeated lockdowns, and ask what is inside and what is outside, what is below us, the Earth, and what is outside the universe. Therefore, after the apparent end of the current crisis, Earthlings, or most of them, have presentiment and doubts that we can ever get out of this global sanitary crisis. One of the reasons is that this crisis is part of another much bigger crisis, which we can call, according to this author, the new climate system. Latour notices the similarities between the scene of Franz Kafka book, as you can see again, the Metamorphosis, and our current situation, that we are all in the shape of Gregor Samsa, who has turned into gigantic cockroach and touches the space around him to find out where he is and what changes have taken place in him. Latour goes even further, claiming that Gregor Samsa is actually the only human being, and those other people, his sister and his father in the novel of Kafka, have turned into monstrous monsters. In this sense, he sees the danger that thanks to the climate crisis and the pandemic, we ourselves can turn into monstrous monsters if we do not realize our own transformation, do not accept it, and do not start working with this. The main issue and problems already shown by Louis Beck since 2007, 2005 is uncertainty and complexity of our situation today. For a long time, you can people believe that all the advances of science and techniques and technology and our civilization is like better and better. Everything is going forward without exception, and future will be better. It was some beliefs, especially in communist era, which you well known also from your own experience in Ukraine or Soviet Union, and also Czechoslovakia in that time, that we are certain that everything will be better. And it was first person who really proved the contrary of that. It was Ilya Prigozhin with his concept and with his book, The End of Certainties. Ilya Prigozhin confirmed that we are experiencing radical change, that nature subject to deterministic laws gives way to probabilistic nature. This uncertainty stems from the processes of fragmentation, recompositing, conflicting logics, as well as the decline of progress and the illusion of change that progress has sustained. On the other hand, the boundaries that delimit domains are artificially created and become increasingly blurry. It means we are not describing uncertain future, but we have to adapt that the world is uncertain and complex. And according to Louis Beck, by shifting the paradigm of irreducible prediction, which brings deterministic certainty for the future to come, the science of complexity linked to uncertainty offer new space, predictions written in the evolution of probability. This opened the way to establish a fundamental cooperation between experimental artistic activities and scientific research in the study of potential and virtual interconnected worlds. Yes, now I'm introducing the concept of art in what art can do in this situation. The complexity in art is characterized by the dynamic interdependence of operators, which create new areas of unprecedented transdisciplinary or interdisciplinarity research, and which appear between disciplines through them, inside and outside them. Taking into account the decisive role of processes as factor of origin and addictive multiplication of communication and representation systems, hybridizing scientific and artistic disciplines have continued to appear since the end of 20th century. Transdisciplinarity, which goes beyond the categorical vision of scientific, intellectual, and artistic thinking, offers wide permeability in order to understand the complexity of human activity as widely as possible by erasing previous regulatory categorization. Educational dimension of our Mutamorphosis project is forging a space of initiating complexity and artistic practices which bring a revolution in the transfer of active knowledge and offer elements of emergency pedagogy. Art is another way how to perceive and how to know, how to enlarge knowledge of the world. And in all these theories is going together with science. Science alone can't answer anymore. Typical example, during COVID time, I was following French press, English press, or news in Czech or in Russian, and in all countries happened big loss of trust to science by ordinary people. Because typical example on media like TV was to invite somebody, very big expert in science and microbiology or medicine, and this person was talking about coronavirus crisis and COVID-19, and then the next day it was another very big name of science, and he was talking about the same subject but completely different and many times opposite opinion. And when you see how it's possible that, for example, in last 5 years, we know scientifically it's proven, and we know everything about climate changes, and if we don't change something, we will have very big problem with not only agriculture, or that it will be much warmer climate, and that, but also like political and world problem of immigration, because people simply could not exist anymore in some area of the earth. It will be very complicated. And following the events of this last 2 years, the situation in the world changed significantly. Mutamorphosis project must therefore be conceptualized in a rapidly changing world within the context of all its shaken articulatory points, whether political, economic, diplomatic, geographical, ecological, technological, or communicative. Actually, it's really transdisciplinary issue. And example of, for example, Greta Thunberg, that 15 years old girl from Sweden can mobilize millions of students and pupils from school, is very powerful example that it's not only ratio, only pure science that can move people, but we need some emotional and maybe artistic input to do that. The Mutamorphosis project therefore offers a play role probe supplied with a number of other configurable tools. Mutamorphosis objectives will be boost art and new technology, science, research all together, and culture innovation by prevailing new artistic practices emerging from post-COVID pandemic times and climate emergency. Another focus will be on collaboration and transfer and dissemination of these practices to all and not only European countries. And we are addressing, or the project ambition is to show that combining certain area of scientific, artistic, technological, and ecological research are absolutely essential for exploring a world that is increasingly unclear, nebulous, unstable, chaotic, and its only characteristic is complexity and uncertainty. We will try to contribute to New European Bauhaus, which is the project of European Commission and European Green Deal, by inspiring the European culture and creative areas, fields of experimental, artistic, and technological hybridization in the urban and rural spaces to raise consciousness on sustainable development through their cultural activities, artistic research, and creation. This raising consciousness is maybe the most important.
Павло, дуже дякую вам за ваш виступ. На жаль,
Pavel, thank you very much for your presentation. Unfortunately, the time is really pressing.
Okay, sorry. Okay,
I thank you so much for your project.
Thank you. I will stop the presentation. Yes. Thank you very much. If you have any question, you can ask, please.